The valley of Elah echoed with the sounds of war. Two armies faced each other, separated by a dry riverbed. On one side stood the Israelites, God's chosen people. They trembled with fear. On the other side stood the Philistines, a mighty army led by a giant. The sun beat down on the parched, dry earth. The air crackled with tension. The fate of Israel hung in the balance. Would God deliver them? Would they be crushed by their enemies?
Choose a man to fight me. If he kills me, we will be your slaves, but if I win, you will be our slaves.
Goliath, the Philistine champion, strode into the valley. He was a mountain of a man, towering over the Israelites. His armor gleamed in the sunlight, and his voice boomed like thunder. Day after day, Goliath repeated his challenge. Day after day, the Israelites cowered in fear. No one dared to face the giant. His size was too intimidating. His strength was too overwhelming. Their hearts were filled with dread. Far away in Bethlehem, a young shepherd named David tended his father's sheep. He spent his days in the fields, guiding his flock, protecting them from wild animals, and ensuring they had enough to eat. The life of a shepherd was not easy, but David embraced it with a sense of duty and courage. He was a handsome boy, strong and brave. His strength was not just physical, it was also a strength of character. David had a heart full of faith and a spirit that was unyielding. He had faced lions and bears to protect his sheep, and each time he emerged victorious, his courage growing with every challenge. One day, his father sent him to the Israelite camp with food for his brothers. They were soldiers in King Saul's army, and the camp was abuzz with tension and fear. The Philistines, their enemies, had a champion named Goliath, a giant of a man who struck terror into the hearts of the Israelites. David arrived as Goliath was issuing his daily challenge. David was shocked. He couldn't believe that this Philistine was allowed to defy the armies of the living God without anyone standing up to him. The sight of the giant warrior, clad in heavy armor and brandishing a massive spear, was intimidating, but David's faith was stronger than his fear.
Who is this Philistine who defies the armies of the living God? David's voice rang out, filled with righteous indignation. He couldn't understand why no one had the courage to face Goliath. To him, it was not just a battle of physical strength, but a test of faith and conviction.
David's brother Eliab scoffed. He saw David as nothing more than a curious boy, out of his depth in the world of warriors and battles.
Are you just here to watch the battle? Eliab's words were dismissive, meant to belittle David and send him back to the fields where he belonged.
He sneered. But David persisted. He went to King Saul and said with a determination that belied his youth,
"I will fight this Philistine." David's voice was steady, his eyes unwavering. He spoke with the confidence of someone who had faced danger before and had come out victorious.
Saul was astonished. He looked at David, seeing only a young shepherd boy. Not a warrior, but there was something in David's eyes, a fire, a conviction that made Saul pause.
"You are just a boy," Saul said, his voice filled with doubt, "and this man has been a warrior from his youth." Saul's words were a reflection of the reality they faced, but David's faith was unwavering. He knew that with God's help, he could overcome any obstacle, no matter how insurmountable it seemed.
King Saul, desperate for a champion to face the Philistine giant Goliath, offered David his own royal armor. The armor was a symbol of the king's own strength and protection. David, a young shepherd, tried it on, but it was too heavy, too cumbersome. The weight of the metal pressed down on him, restricting his movements. He was a shepherd, not a soldier. He took it off and said,
"I cannot go in these, for I am not used to them. This armor is not meant for me."
David picked up his shepherd's staff and his sling, tools he was familiar with, tools that had served him well in the past. These were the instruments of his trade, the tools of a shepherd who had defended his flock from lions and bears. He then chose 5 smooth stones from the riverbed, carefully selecting each one for its perfect shape and weight. With his sling and stones, he felt a sense of readiness, a sense of purpose. He was ready to face the giant. David's brothers and King Saul watched in amazement. They couldn't understand his confidence. They couldn't see the faith that burned in his heart. David wasn't relying on his own strength, he was relying on the strength of God. He knew that the battle was not his alone, but the Lord's. As he approached the battlefield, the crowd of men watched in silence, their eyes filled with doubt and fear. But David's heart was filled with unwavering faith. He knew that with God on his side, no giant could stand against him. The young shepherd, armed with nothing but a sling and stones, was about to show the world the true power of faith and the armor of God.
David approached Goliath, his eyes fixed on the giant.
Goliath laughed when he saw David, a mere boy, coming to fight him. "Am I a dog," he roared, "that you come at me with sticks? Come here, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field."
David stood firm. He knew that God was with him, and that was all that mattered.
You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied.
David had done what no one thought possible. He had defeated the giant. He had conquered fear with faith.
David ran to Goliath and with the giant's own sword cut off his head. The Philistines, seeing their champion fall, panicked and fled. The Israelites, their spirits soaring, gave chase.
The valley that had echoed with the sounds of war now rang with the sounds of victory. The Israelites shouted and sang, praising God for their deliverance. David, the shepherd boy, was their hero. David returned from the battle a conquering hero. The women danced and sang, "Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands."
With a tone of jealousy, Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands.
King Saul, however, was consumed with jealousy. He saw David as a threat and his heart turned dark with envy. But David's faith never wavered. He knew that his victory was not his own, it belonged to God. He continued to trust in God's plan, even when faced with Saul's persecution. The story of David and Goliath is more than just a children's tale. It is a timeless story of faith and courage, a story that continues to inspire and challenge us today. It reminds us that with God, all things are possible. It teaches us that faith, even the size of a mustard seed, can move mountains. David's victory was not just a physical victory, it was a spiritual victory. He overcame fear with faith. He defeated doubt with courage. He triumphed over evil with good. We all face giants in our lives, giants of fear, doubt, addiction, illness, and despair. These giants may seem insurmountable, but the story of David reminds us that we are not alone. We serve a God who is bigger than any giant we may face. Like David, we may be tempted to rely on our own strength, our own wisdom, our own resources. But true victory comes when we surrender to God, when we trust in His power, and when we walk in His ways. The story of David and Goliath is a testament to the power of faith. In the face of insurmountable odds, a young shepherd boy stood against a giant warrior, armed not with a sword or shield, but with unwavering belief. This ancient tale has transcended time, reminding us that faith can move mountains. Faith is not simply believing that God can do something. It is a deep-seated conviction that He is always at work, even when we cannot see it. It is the quiet assurance that in the grand tapestry of life, every thread has a purpose, woven by the hands of a master weaver. It is believing that He will do something. This belief is not passive. It is active and dynamic. It propels us forward, giving us the courage to face each new day with hope and determination. It is the light that guides us through the darkest valleys, the beacon that leads us to the dawn of a new beginning. It is trusting in His goodness, even when we don't understand His ways. Life is filled with mysteries and uncertainties, but faith anchors us, providing stability amidst the chaos. It is the trust that despite the storms we encounter, there is a divine plan at work, one that is ultimately for our good. When we face our giants with faith, we can be confident that God will fight for us. Just as David stood fearless before Goliath, we too can stand firm, knowing that we are not alone. Our battles may be different, but the principle remains the same. With faith, we are empowered to overcome. He may not always remove the giant, but He will give us the strength to overcome. Challenges and obstacles are part of the human experience, but faith transforms these trials into opportunities for growth. It is through these struggles that we discover our true strength and resilience. He may not always calm the storm, but He will calm our hearts. In the midst of life's tempests, faith provides a sanctuary of peace. It is the calm within the storm, the assurance that no matter how fierce the winds may blow, we are held in the protective embrace of a loving Creator. In the words of David, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." This simple yet profound declaration encapsulates the essence of faith. It is the recognition that we are cared for, guided and provided for, by a benevolent shepherd. With faith, we find contentment and peace, knowing that we are never alone on our journey.